one of the biggest issues, and this is one thing, like I said, being somebody that comes from both cultures, I try to scream this at the top of my lungs all the time, but nobody, I feel like it falls on deaf ears. And it is, hello, everybody, you just need to compete. That's how you win. You compete, which is very an Asian mentality. Let's talk about your son for a minute, who raised in China. He's a young man now, right? He's in college. I think he's at the University of Texas, Austin. So he's studying in the United States. And let's talk about DEI and the differences with the American value system when it comes to education versus the Chinese system. Because I think this is the root of the problem. That if the United States could compete in the same way that Asian Chinese mentality of competition, then we would be fine, instead of trying to do what we do, which is warmonger, drop bombs, right? That's kind of been our, or sanction, economic warfare. Our answer is warfare. Chinese answer is compete, academics. So tell us about the Chinese style. Your son was raised in China. Now he's in the United States. Is he liking it in the US? Is he liking University of Texas, Austin?
So those are two big things, talking about DEI and talking about why my son didn't go to college here, but decided to go to UT Austin. And it's really, Kim, because he wanted to build up his drone company called Tom's Aerial Vehicles, or TAV Drones. He incorporated it in Delaware. And he's doing what you and I want America to do. He is
Yeah.
building drones for Americans by Americans in Texas, and he wants to build up a drone manufacturing ecosystem in Texas. So he wants to outcompete other countries. But more than that, he just wants to make America strong. Right now, about 85% of drones used in the United States are Chinese. Now, because unfortunately of the tension between the two countries, that might be a political risk in the future, because Congress is thinking about banning DJI and other Chinese drones. And that's going to leave a huge vacuum for our policemen, our firefighters, our farmers, our medics, because they're now relying on drones. So Tom, he went to UT Austin. He's raised some money from Genesis, a venture capital firm already, and he's building up public safety drones in America for America, because it's exactly that. It's exactly CHIPS Act. It's exactly the type of movement that America needs to build up innovation, manufacturing technology in America to outcompete, not to hurt China,
Okay.
not to
Right.
hurt other nations, but to make America strong. That's what he's doing there.
Let me just back up for a second so that I can make this really clear for everybody watching. So and this I think really illustrates the picture that I'm trying to paint. Your son Tom is extremely impressive. I mean, how old is he right now? Is he
He's
7? How
18
old
years
is he?
old.
He's 18. So is he a freshman at UT?
He's a freshman at UT, just started
Okay.
2 months ago.
Okay. Well, congratulations. Um, he's extremely impressive. He already has, by the time he was 16 years old, 4 patents, 4 technology patents. Has So he's born and raised in China. He's American, born to you. You're an American. He speaks English perfectly. I've seen some of the interviews that he's on. He already, by the time he's 16 years old, had 4 patents, innovative, interest by venture capitalists. Now he's at UT Austin, goes to school in America, loves America. He's American. He, but then he's at this age, at 18 years old, already has venture capitalists trying to give him money for his inventions. Um, this Tom illustrates, I think, exactly what I'm trying to say. Like in China, I mean, no doubt he's extraordinary even in China. He's obviously very brilliant, but there's still an atmosphere that, I mean, I don't know any other 16-year-old or 18-year-old that's so accomplished in tech already at that age, and and then was able to get patents in China, 4 different patents by the time he was 16 years old. Like, this is a different cat. Meanwhile, our kids are on like TikTok trying to figure out, I don't even know what they're doing in comparison, but they're not competing in the same level, at the same level that I think Chinese students are competing. Um,
Absolutely, Kim.
I mean, I
Absolutely.
think that's kind
Sorry
of the
for
point, is like,
interrupting.
now you've got, yeah, go ahead.
I think you have it exactly right. China's education system was terrible 20 years ago. It focused all on rote memory. It just was not a very vibrant, creative, innovative education system. But you have to give credit to the Chinese. In the last 10 to 15 years, they've really improved the quality of teaching, the quality of excellence. And I think, frankly, they focus on academic meritocracy. So in a lot of classrooms, what they do is students don't have fixed assigned seats. When they take a test, if they score the highest in the class, they sit in the first row, and then the second row, third row, all the way to the back. So everybody in the class knows who's performing the best
Mhm.
in class, who's performing the worst. And that gets kids to really study hard and to try to outcompete their classmates so that they're sitting in the front row. Unfortunately, and this is getting a little bit, sensitive, but DEI in the United States, I think, is destroying academic meritocracy. I used to sit on the board of trustees for St. Paul's
Mhm.
School, one of the top boarding schools in the United States. Bob Mueller went there, so did John Kerry. So I saw the discussions of DEI. Now, St. Paul's is still a great school, don't get me wrong, but some of the discussions that we started to hear, I think, was lowering standards. And it just, I don't believe that you should look at race
Yeah.
too much or sexual orientation too much to admit students into American universities. Now, maybe you want to do it a little bit to help underprivileged kids and groups grow, but I think it's gotten too chaotic in the last 10 years. The top universities need to be focused on meritocracy. Our companies like a Google or a Microsoft need to be focused on excellence in innovation and in efficiency. But you see, too many of them have been saying, well, we've got quotas. We need to hire a certain number of people from this racial background or this gender or this sexual preference. And that's, to me, reverse racism.
Mhm.
That, to me, is hurting the ability for American companies to compete. Because I got to tell you, Alibaba, Tencent, DeepSeek, great Chinese companies are focused on building the next generation of AI, the next generation of semiconductors. That is their goal, not placating DEI and do what Google did with Gemini, where they had Black people, be Thomas Jefferson in their initial launching of the Google Gemini AI. That's a huge, huge problem, Kim, that I see that's hitting the United States. And frankly, that's why I think so many people voted for Trump, because he wanted to get rid of DEI. I'm not sure that they all voted for all the things he's doing now, but it was just common sense to the majority of Americans that DEI is wrong the way that it's been practiced
Right.
the last 5, 10 years in America. It was reverse racism.
And that's just one layer of the problem. I mean, even if we get rid of DEI, which I think we should do as well, but even if we get rid of it, we're still I mean, just and this is just such a major frustration of mine, trying to get our whole mentality to shift towards working just education, getting the kids to compete. Um, we will not be able to compete with Asia. Bottom line, we cannot compete unless we change the way we educate the kids and where we put the values. I mean, we're just not going to. Now we could decide as a nation in America that we don't want to focus purely on academics the same way that Asia does, that we want to have more of a artistic or Renaissance style society, that we want, that maybe there's other things that we want to put a lot more value into, and that we're not going to, so let them be all the engineers and the doctors of the world, but maybe we'll have more diversity in, the types of employment that people do. Sure, fair enough. But the the thing that frustrates me the most right now here in the United States is also this de-emphasis on education. It's a lot of the same group that cries about DEI. And this is why I just don't think getting rid of DEI is going to solve the problem. Because you got the same people saying we got to get rid of DEI, we got to go back to a meritocracy. The same exact group is saying, and our kids don't need college. College is a waste. College is a problem. College is and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I mean, if you're going to demonize education, then all of our doctors and all of our engineers will have to be imported from Asia. I mean, we just won't have any. And we are already importing a whole lot of them. And now we're going to have to import them more if we start saying to the kids, college is a giant waste of time. That's just I just don't even know. I mean, I'm at a loss of words for it, because to me it's just such a It's just idiotic. How are we going to compete as a country if we don't emphasize education? I mean, when my mom came to this country from Vietnam, she and Vietnam also ranked the students from first to last. Like that's how they didn't do grades where it's like, okay, this group got A's and this one got B's. And here in the United States, it's very private who gets A's. You know, you only know if you get an A if you say it. But in Vietnam, they would rank the students. They'd have to actually go up to the board and see where their name was on the list. And she was always top of her class. And by the time she came to America, when she was a teenager, she was like 14 or 15 years old, she already knew calculus. I mean, they're just so far advanced in comparison to we are here. That is one, DEI is just the tip of the iceberg of the problem. We have to then focus on what are we pushing the kids towards learning? You know, are we creating the innovators, the next generation of innovators? I don't know if we are. I think China is. I think India is. And I think China in particular is right now. And I think that is, so like I said, DEI is just the tip of the iceberg, in my
Yeah, the
opinion.
whole education system in America is a complete mess. I think you've got a lot of problems. I'll give a great example. Zhejiang University in China is probably ranked number 4 or 5, but they've just created a whole new curriculum about AI. And so now all of the top
Mhm.
Chinese students are all going to Zhejiang University because they want to learn the newest models of AI. They want to understand what the future technologies are. You go to a school like Harvard, you know, I graduated from Harvard, so I love Harvard, but their curriculum hasn't changed much in the last 50 to 70 years. They also have tenured
Right.
professors who are there for 50 years who are against, you know, launching new classes because it's not in their intellectual wheelhouse. So I think the tenure system is a problem. I think the emphasis on sports is a problem. I think the high price of going to college is a problem. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous that it costs 80 to 100,000 US dollars a year to send a kid to Harvard. Now, they have a lot of financial aid, but the reality is a lot of kids there, I don't know the exact number, 50, 60% aren't paying financial aid, are paying full price, even if it hurts them. So it's a problem. That's actually
Yeah.
another reason why my son decided to go to UT Austin, because he wanted to go to a public school. He believes in the public school system. It's 11,000 US dollars for an in-state student to go. It's affordable for most people. I mean, it's still expensive, but it's something that isn't going to put somebody 400, 500,000 US dollars in debt when you're 22 years old and graduating. I think we need to do a
Yeah.
whole reform of what classes are taught, how professors are hired and tenured, and how people pay. It just doesn't make sense. Now, here's a joke that, and it wasn't even a joke. I was meeting with an investor in the United States recently in Boston, and he said to me, Sean, the reason why America is going to beat China in AI is our Chinese are better than China's Chinese. But the reality is that most of America's Chinese in AI actually were from China originally, and they actually just went to the United States to study and to immigrate. And that's why one famous one was a big engineer who was at Anthropic, and he just quit because the founder of Anthropic called China an adversary. And this, I got to give credit to this gentleman. He's studying in America. He might have even become an American citizen, but he's saying, I don't want to work for a company, no matter how much money you pay, that's going to call China an enemy. Let's have peace between the two
Mhm.
countries.
Well, and that's the thing. We got to be able to attract top talent. I mean, there's certainly going to be a lot of people educated in China, born and raised in China that are attracted to the American way of life. And just like there's many Americans like yourself living in China who are attracted to the Chinese way of life. I mean, it's got to be, but we want to be able to attract that best and the brightest. But you're right. I mean, the joke being, okay, our Chinese might be better than their Chinese, but our Chinese are still coming from China. So we have to clearly fix our education system. And the thing is, you know, the way that people are trying to fix it here is basically down with college. I mean, rather than addressing the issues in the universities, they're instead just encouraging kids not to go at all. And that is just, again, so short sighted. It's kind of like the sanctions and the kind of how we started off this conversation, the sanctions, the economic warfare. You know, you do these things, you have to think about what the repercussions are going to be long term. And there will be long term repercussions if you tell kids you don't need college and you instead say that to all the kids all the time. And that's the rhetoric coming from everybody on Fox News practically, even though they all have Harvard and Yale degrees, right? They're saying you don't need college. Um, at the end of the day, I mean, we're going to end up with having to import all of our engineers and doctors in, and all those AI tech executives are going to be coming from overseas. And then, but if we have restrictions on immigration into the country, then we won't even be able to get them, and then we reel ourselves into a third world country pretty quickly, which can happen, almost overnight if we're not careful. But what a crazy world we're living in right now. When it comes to China, I just wish, I know a lot of people will watch this conversation and say you're both a bunch of China shills, right? We're going to get that. Um, I'm like you, Sean. I've never been to China. I don't have a feeling about China one way or the other, to be honest with you. I don't have a positive feeling toward China nor a negative feeling toward China. I have no feelings towards it. I'm just totally neutral. My issue is I don't like the way that the United States is approaching the competition with China instead of treating it like a competition and actually competing and putting ourselves in the best position for our future. We're instead trying to undercut. Instead trying to slice them up. And that is just not a strategy that it's just not going to work. So it's a failed strategy from the outset, and it only puts us in a worse position. And that's my greatest fear, is that the United States is just going to reel into a worse position because we are too stubborn to think about the real repercussion. We're just too stubborn to think about actually competing. What are your give you last thoughts on what else you'd like to say, Sean, while we got you?
So I think you've ended it perfectly. For the last 8 years, China has spent all of its money and effort marshaling the government, marshaling the private sector, marshaling the universities, the top minds to innovate. China has focused on how to innovate for the last 8 years. The United States has spent the last 8 years trying to figure out how to stop China from innovating by putting on export controls, by bullying, by besmirching them in the media. The US now is spending $1.6 billion. This was a bill passed by Congress to say negative things about China in the media. How much better would it be if the United States, just spent all of the last 8 years focused on innovating to outcompete China? And even better, Kim, how much better would it be if we said, let's work with China on the things that we could work together on? We should still be buying iPhones made in China. We still should be buying Dell computers made in China. The Chinese are good at this. This is something that doesn't need to be made in the United States. But when it comes to semiconductors or drones, like my son Tom, we should be making those types of items in the US just to safeguard our national security. Not because we view China as an enemy, but just because who knows what's going to happen over the next 50 years. Unfortunately, taxes, death, and war are the only three things that we can rely on in the world. But I hope we can have peace between the US and China in the coming years. We need a reset in relations, and I hope President Trump is smart enough to do that.
Thank you so much. Sean Ryan, author of The Split, Finding the Opportunities in China's Economy in the New World Order. What is that book about, real quick, specifically?
That book is looking at the US-China tension and what that means for businesses.
Oh.
So I say that companies like NVIDIA or Microsoft, frankly, don't have a lot of opportunities in China anymore, and they should be focused on selling into the United States. While I say companies like a Nike, like a Lululemon, like a Zara still have great opportunities in China, because at the end of the day, China is now the world's largest retail market. Chinese still love American brands. They still want to buy Air Jordans. They still want to buy running shoes from Hoka.
Okay. Sean Ryan, thank you so much for being here. We do have a link down below to follow you on X and also to get the book. Thank you again for your time. Really appreciate your insight.
Thanks, Kim. Big fan. Honored.
Thank you for watching this clip from the full Kim Iverson Show, which you can catch Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. It is free for you to watch. Again, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, KimIversonShow.com. See you there.